Welcome back to the Win and End podcast. I am your host, Max P, as always, and I'm joined today by none other than the great coach himself, Memo. What's up, Memo? How you doing, man?
Hey guys, happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Max.
Awesome. So what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of talk about how things have changed over the last couple of weeks. I haven't done an episode actually since the whole ban hammer dropped, other than the one episode where we talked about the ban itself. Which gave time, I think, for things to settle a little bit out, not that much, but somewhat settle out. So we have a little bit of an idea of what the new meta is like. But before I get into that, Memo, like a little bit of background on you. Who are you? What are you about?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm a German cEDH player and tournament grinder, and also a coach. I do cEDH coaching. I started playing cEDH with like Ikoria. That's when we got our first commander decks, me and my brothers. It was actually also like me starting with commander. And then my first cEDH deck was Calamax, the dinosaur. And I was like, I love Pestamite and Kiki-Jiki. And if I convoke a Code of Calling with Calamax, I get to put into play both at the same time and win. This was like basically the first commander combo I built. And then I quickly picked up on that and started playing cEDH. Yeah, and that was like 2022. That was like also the time when online tournaments became a thing, so I started playing them. And then at end of 2022, beginning of 2023, I started fooling around with like bad decks. I played like some, don't even ask, like Roger Tevish Turbo, like I don't know, I played some wonky shit, and I was like, no, I want to play one of the good decks. What's a good deck? And then I picked up Najeela, which got like brewed or like streamlined by Drake and Europe, and then yeah, the rest is history. I think I was like a hot knife that went through butter for a couple of months at least, until people were like, we have to like respect fucking Najeela, and then things definitely got harder for me, and obviously other grinders entered the scene.
There was like a good 6 months where Najeela was the boogeyman, and I think you were a big part of that. Kind of made that happen. I was winning tournaments left and right, and everyone was talking about no bad cards Najeela. That was where it's at. I even did like I did like a top 15 breakdown at one point of decks, and I put Najeela, specifically your build at number 1 at that point.
Yeah, it was like actually crazy. Like I also remember like comedian, a colleague of ours, also was like, for a very long time he stated Najeela is the number 1 deck right now. But then things started shifting around. A couple of cards got printed that hurt our deck, and like other decks really profited off of it. And then I don't know, Najeela just kind of fell off. Like this was paired also by people respecting it more, I think. Rightfully so.
You think that's why it fell off? It's just people started to understand what the deck was doing and were more prepared for it?
Yeah, exactly. I think this was like one reason, and the other reason that other decks just got more support. So I think the biggest strength of Turbo Najeela is always that people are not aware of how they should respect you. Because let's assume I go turn 1 Najeela, right? And you look at your hand and you're asking yourself, okay, what is Memo doing on turn 2? Is it a Samut? Is it a Ad Nauseam? Is it a Breach? Is it just a Revi, right? Is it like... So it's very hard to respect it, because you never know which angle it is. It's like the strength of the deck. But then I think people were just like over-respecting it, or like being like, okay, we have to make sure whatever he's doing, it's not resolving or whatever. Like I think this was like one of the reasons. But one of the reasons was like the breaking point, in my opinion, because One Ring got printed, so all the combat lines got worse,
right?
Because like turn 1, turn 2 Ring was so prevalent, and one of my special moves was turn 1 Najeela, turn 2 Grim Hireling into extra turn spell, and this was like now less likely to win on the spot because of the One Ring giving protection. Yeah, stuff like that. Like, right, Born Upon a Wind was in this set, Orcish Bowmaster was in this set. So I think it was like a little bit of everything.
I remember during that time, my game plan, I was on Florian, I think, at that point. I remember my game plan was, there's a Winota player at the table, there's a Najeela player at the table. Let the Winota player play a really good stacks piece, and then kill the Najeela player, and then worry about the rest of the table. That was kind of the game plan. So, because you just never knew. Najeela was the one deck that you just didn't know which angle it was going to come from, and any
Mhm.
turn you feel like you could lose to it. So I think
Yeah.
everyone kind of took that same approach, like let's kill Najeela and then we can worry about everything else.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, fast forward to now, is Najeela viable anymore?
Yes. Yes. I think it got better. So I think Najeela fell off hard, especially. So we had a brief. So if I compare it, I like to compare it to other 5-color decks, right? So if we look at how things turned out, so Najeela was like very strong for like 6 or 7 months. It was probably the best deck. It was definitely the best 5-color deck. Then Kenrith picked up some steam, but quickly Sisay established herself with being like the best 5-color commander. Obviously, like the Planeswalker variant was one of the more popular ones. I think one of the reasons was like also that clones just got more popular, right? We got Imposter Mech was also a print. People started playing Phyrexian Metamorphs. Flash Duplicate got printed. And then people were like, hey, if the dockside makes X amount of treasures, often it's like not that many, like we can win on the spot if we have a clean outlet in the command zone that also doubles the dock size we're making. And I think this was like when people caught up to that. Yeah, I think this was the time when Sissy just got like the definitively best 5-color deck.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think this was for the longest time.
I think Sisay was also
Truth.
picked up a lot of steam because Sisay is also really good against specifically Blue Farm. You know, because it got under a lot of the interaction that Blue Farm was packing. So that made Sisay good too. But I think now Sisay is really kind of fallen off pretty hard. And I think even Blue Farm has fallen off a little bit.
I agree. People ask me, they said like, wait, Crypt, Jeweled Lotus, Dockside, like so many important cards for Najeela. I'm like, yes, that's true. But first and foremost, other decks, especially other 5-color decks, got hit way worse. Like the main win con of Kenrith was reanimating Dockside. Like this is done. Probably can still play like Kenrith Hermit Druid or like some Kenrith good stuff, but it's like definitely worse. The Sisay pilots, like no offense, they keep telling me, yeah, we can do Bloom Tender, the Revi stuff. Like we have Selvala, and I'm like, sure, this is true, but I have never seen you win with it. I've only seen you win with Dockside loops. I know it's in your deck sometimes to see a Selvala, but it's like rarely you win with it. So I think also Sisay suffers more from those bans than Najeela. And so far, I think Najeela is fine. We're doing good. Shout out to Nevi, who won a 26-player tournament yesterday with Turbo Najeela. Won a Grim Monolith and a Collector Duskmorn booster.
Nice.
So I'm very happy for him. So I think we're doing good.
Yeah, it makes sense too, because, you know, I'll tell you my experience with the current meta a little bit, you know, is that things are much, much slower and the game states get much murkier and messier and difficult to break in wins. But Najeela actually makes sense in a way, because if nothing else, you just make warriors, and if that will eventually break through the muck by itself. So there's a little bit of inevitability there just by having Najeela in the command zone. That makes sense.
And so what I touched on this briefly a couple of minutes ago. So we are able to pivot, right? Najeela is very flexible. So if we mulligan and we see how the first couple of turns like play out, I keep a demonic tutor without knowing if this will grab Breach, if this will grab Adnos, Cullingrid, or the Revi, right? Depending on how the pod composition is and how if it's Dexia, I like to win with the Revi, because the Revi is just like very stacks proof as a win con, right? I don't care about Rule of Law, for example. But if I feel like, oh, the table is kind of racing, maybe I try to find a sharp like ad nauseum line or whatever. So I think Najeela like really profits off of being flexible. And in my opinion, it's very wild because everyone is testing shit. I see some really wild shit, and like my experience in this last couple of weeks was that either the game is over turn 1, turn 2, because mostly Roxai won, or the games just go very, very grindy. And I think Najeela can compete with both. Because we are able to, like you said, we just like worst case we just swing sideways, right? And if they kill Najeela, we just recast Najeela, and then we swing with tokens. We make more tokens because we don't even need Najeela to swing. But we can also present a turn 2 ad nauseum. We can also present a Culling Ritual power play. We're still able to do that. So I totally agree with you that that the flexibility is now more important than ever, probably.
Yeah, makes sense. So I guess with that, let's just get into the current meta. I mean, it sounds like you're still seeing a fair amount of turbo.
Yeah.
People are still winning on turn 2 a lot, right? In your experience.
Also myself. Like yesterday I had like Gemstone and then casted Roger, Phyrexian Tower, sacked him, Necropode, turn 1, going forth into a turn 2, last chance, pay 25 more life and win. So I think this is not going away. Okay, this has to be respected. But if it gets respected, I feel like it gets very grindy and very dirtily. So
yeah,
this is just my experience. So I think there are less like aggressive turbo wins now, but the deck that was always best at it, the Roxai, is still out there, and it's still as scary as it ever was, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the 2 decks that didn't fall off were Roxai and Kinnan, and I think that's being reflected where I'm playing, at least.
Yep.
The big difference to me, though, is whereas before everyone was trying to play Roxai style, even if they weren't playing Roxai, people were trying to just win as quickly as they could. I was doing it on Tim Najeska. People were doing it on Tim Nakrom, playing Turbo Tim Nakrom. Everyone was in that same mindset of trying to just win as quickly as possible. Now, the only deck that can really realistically do that consistently is Roxai. So when you sit down at the table to play, people aren't mulling away their interactive hands as much, which makes, Roxai, have a big target on his chest and not win as consistently as it did, at least in my experience. It still can get there, but those situations, those games where like, holy shit, how did Roxai just win on turn 2 and nobody had fucking anything? Right? Those situations are less frequent now because usually people have something, at least more often.
Yeah. So I play a lot of CEDH. So I played less before the bans because I got kind of tired of the meta. It wasn't solved, but I was like, okay, the best thing, like clearly the best thing from my opinion was like to do like this or that, right? And so since the bans, I've been like super addicted again, and I play like almost every evening, mainly online, like 3 to 4 games. But I vividly remember one game before the bans where I played Roxai, my friend played like Najeela and 2 other decks, and I tried to win with a Doxit power play with like Roxai. They stopped me, and then my friend untapped in Najeela, and he went Phantasmal Image, cool, Doxite, make 10 treasures, Cutzel, Najeela, Final Fortune, untap, Derevi, win.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this is also now less likely. So if people stop one Doxite, it's not like, or Doxite power play, it's not like the next player untaps, plays their clone, and has like also the win attempt immediately. So right. I would agree that you get away with like keeping interaction early on, like you get away with it better than you did before the bans, because in my opinion, miserable clone meta is not as prevalent anymore. Yes, most of the decks are probably still playing Phyrexian Metamorph for maybe a One Ring or a Citadel or whatever, but it's not like you play Fimage, Flesh Duplicate, Metamorph, Imposter Mech anymore. And we had so many decks that literally played Cursed Mirror, like every clone they could get. And I personally was very tired of it, and I'm very happy that this is not the reality anymore, at least from what I've seen, because I think it was just very exhausting. But yeah, to get back to your point, I think this is definitely, now the dynamic is, okay, I can keep a Force plus blue card on a multi-6 because there sits a rock in front of me, and it's not that likely that I stop him and then immediately lose to the next one, unless it's like maybe double or triple rock in your pot. Right. So I would agree that people are more inclined to keep interaction, because the game will most likely go longer if you stop the first power play.
Right, exactly. And then the other side of that is, because those are less frequent, those kind of games, those, in my opinion, got pretty toxic, because it was just turn order simulator, first player either won or the second player won, and that was it. You didn't get past that. Now what happens is you'll get one player who goes for it early, they get stopped, and then after that, because the game has slowed down about a turn, everyone has time to set up their value engines, right? Whereas before, that was really risky. Tapping out for a Ristic on turn 2 was just, generally speaking, a bad play before ban, because it pulled your pants down and let the next player win, is what you did. Now you can afford to do that because you got a little bit more of, get that one extra turn to set up. And then what happens is you end up with a table full of value engines in play. Everyone's drawing lots of cards. Everyone's generating lots of mana resources, and the games get really, really bogged down. And it becomes very, very difficult to find windows to win. And those games, to me, like so many draws. Some of those games end in draws, or at least they could end in draws, and all it takes is someone to say, hey, let's draw instead of losing, and the game ends up in a draw every time.
I agree. Like if you look at what have been like common play patterns before bans, I keep a Vamp tutor turn 1, and I'm in a blue-black deck. What I often did is I either Vamp for Mana Crypt or for Ristic Study, and then turn 2, I go second land, Crypt Study, and I have 1 land open. So now this all is different, right? Because now I have to like, for me it's so weird to like Enlighten tutor for Soul Ring, like, and then not have the source open. I like it because it's something new, it's different, so it's a new challenge for me to assess my hands, and it's not like, this just grabs like for example, Worldly Tutor is such a different card now for me, because in Najeela especially, I kept so many hands off of turn 1 Worldly, untap, second land, dockside, fix my hand. No matter which payoff, the dockside fixed my hand. And now this is like gone, and it's very interesting to like sit there, assess hands, and be like, okay, what are we grabbing? Am I just grabbing a low throw and hope it gets back to me and I make a couple of treasures, or am I supposed to grab a Samut and develop Samut later? Am I supposed to not Worldly turn 1? Am I supposed to mull this hand? I've been liking it, but I totally agree with you that once the first player stopped, it often slows down a little, and this is where it gets interesting. Like you said, people are trying to deploy their engines, their grind engines, and I personally have been asking myself, how do we either profit off of this or make it harder for them to get value? And I have some cool ideas I'm eager to share with you.
I want to hear. I have some things I've been experiencing too. You go first. What do you got?
Okay, so I don't know if you know, but so I have 3 decks sleeved up right now. So I always have Najeela sleeved up for 2 years now. I have Roxai sleeved up for a very long time now. I think since beginning of the year. And then I usually have 1 deck which I'm just swapping around whatever I'd like to play. It was the Revi with Nadu in the 99. I was very excited about that deck, and then the Nadu ban came, and now I know you could probably still do the Revi One Ring stuff, but I'm not as excited about it. So what I thought would be good, and what I still think is decent, is TNT. So I've been jumping the TNT archetypes for the last couple of weeks. I even played a tournament with it, but had 4 draws. It was, or 3 draws, 1 loss, and dropped. So it was definitely not my jam. I went into this tournament with the 0 reps because I literally sleeved it up the night before. And I have been seeing some creatures and testing some creatures which I think could be insane right now, especially in Tymna decks. I'm not sure if it's good in other decks, but I think especially in Tymna decks, there are some hate bears that are better than ever. 2 popular ones we already know is Drained Magistrate and Opposition Agent. I think those are more important than ever. I'm even testing them in Najeela. I played Drained at the beginning. When I started picking Najeela up, Drained was a mainstay for me because a good friend of mine, Young Pipio, once said to me, cards like Drained and Oppo, they just put the foot down and they just hit the brakes and they buy you a lot of time. They're just generic good cards. Even if they don't do anything for the Najeela pan because they aren't warriors, they're still just generally good to deploy early. And like you said, everyone tries to cast their Trustios, cast their Smothering Tithe, or tutor for the Smothering Tithe, right? And I think Drained and Oppo are cards that prey on that if you get to deploy them early. It obviously, turn 1 Darkroot Oppo is always insane. It was also insane 6 months ago. But I feel an early Drained to shut down the Trustios, for example, or a well-timed Opposition Agent on a deck that plays 15 tutors is very good. Also versus a Magda, which has been picking up a lot of steam. I feel Opposition Agent is very good. People are still trying to make Sisay work, and I feel Opposition Agent is also very good versus
Destroys that deck, yeah.
Yeah, so those are
It's so interesting to me that you say both of those cards because, the way I've been looking at things. I'm also working on TNT right now. Is the deck I'm probably going to play in tournaments for the next few months. And I'm taking the position that I think everyone is looking at Draneth and Oppo in kind of the same way, where I'm seeing more and more of it in the pods that I'm in. I'm seeing people deploy Draneth early. I'm seeing people drop opposition agents early. And my philosophy was to do exactly the opposite. My philosophy was to cut Draneth, cut Oppo, expect my opponents to play those cards anyway, so that I don't, so rather than me pushing to have the same effect, I'm looking at effects that get around what they're doing. So, for example, I cut Imperial Seal from TNT and replaced it with Limdal's Vault.
Ooh, I'm also testing Limdal's Vault in Najeela. I like it.
Because it does very much the same thing, but it does it at instant speed and it gets completely around Oppo, right? Exactly. I'm also looking at things like Hazel's Brewmaster combo with Devoted Druid to create an infinite mana without having to use the graveyard in a way that Draneth could stop. I'm even I'm even testing things like Aether Vial right now as ways to get around just sort of the grindy meta and force creatures into play to do things like. So I'm trying to look at it like, okay, I'll let my opponents play the stacks pieces, and I'm going to focus on playing around them, and see if that works.
So I can definitely see that, like for instance, cutting tutors because you're expecting an opposition agent from your opponent every game. So I'm super on board with that. What I just love about those hate bears, they also draw cards with Tymna. So I think Ether Vial is super hot tech, but Ether Vial is not drawing your cards. And I just turn one Draneth into turn 2 Tymna, swing, draw a card. It just feels so freaking good, especially in a Cradle deck. But I like the way you think, and I think there's definitely a lot of stuff to explore. And also, like, in my opinion, so I've been, like I said, super addicted. I'm very excited about the changes. Everyone who knows me knows I've been asking for any changes to the format like for years now, because I thought it's so stale. It's not the changes I would have made myself, but I don't care at this point. I'm just happy we have a new meta and we have new exciting stuff to test out. Like, you would have never looked at Ether Vial even 3 months ago, right? But now look at us, what we are doing, and this is just
it is cool. It is cool. Yeah, I think that is the benefit. I really wish they had either done less in terms of the ban or done more. If they had banned all of those cards and deliberately targeted Rogsai and deliberately targeted Kinnan to make sure that those decks were nerfed as well, so it would open up all of the brewing space. I feel like that would have been a lot better. But I mean, they weren't even looking at CEDH when they made the bans, so it's irrelevant. But but I love brewing. I mean, I think you and I are the same in that. Like, that's half the reason I play CEDH is I just love the fact that there's so much brew space and room to innovate and do interesting things, that you can't do in most 60 card formats. You just can't. You can't innovate on the same level.
Yeah, so I agree.
And it is fun right now. Like, I've never played green before, really. In the CEDH, and now here I am really playing Thrasios and enjoying the hell out of it. That's really cool.
Yeah, Culling Ritual.
I love that deck. Say what?
Culling Ritual is our new dock set.
Yeah, well, and Devoted Druid. Devoted Druid is a lot of the same play patterns as Dockside with Thrasios in the command zone. So, but I'm not leaning into Tymna enough. I think with what I'm doing right now, like, I'm barely ever casting Tymna. It's just usually the game states get so bogged down that my attackers just can't get through, and
Well. Do I have a solution for you? I found a card nobody has been playing for a while now, and Malcolm, our good, let's just say, one-trick pony, Malcolm Beckford, has been very high on this card ages ago, and I think it's a slam dunk in Tymna. Everyone I recommended it to, a couple of, like I think last week I started playing it, has been very happy with it. It's Drana and Lenvala, a 3/4 flyer that has vigilance and that shuts down all activated abilities from opposing creatures, and Drana and Lenvala gets all those abilities. So if we look at the meta now, right now, we have Kinnan, like you said, we have Magda, like I said, Thrasios, Tissay, Najeela. If you deploy the Drana and Lenvala, they can all not
Game over.
They can't activate it. And your Drana, like I think a couple of days ago, I had the Drana and Lenvala. I tutored for it because I really wanted to playtest it. And then my Drana and Lenvala became a Death Red Shaman and a Thrasios. So then my Entomb I was still on Razorcats, my Entomb suddenly got live, and I was like, cool, the Deathrat Shaman is shut down. I can now Entomb and reanimate Razorcats. So this was like super cool. And my opponents were like, oh my god, right? I think it was one Sisay and one Trustius Tymna deck, so one mirror. And I think Drana and Levala, if you get away with it, like casting cost, yes, it's 4 mana, it's a value creature for 4 mana, and there's this meme that 4 mana value creatures are like not good enough in the 99, but I feel like it's good enough because from the top 10 decks, half of them have an activated ability in their command zone, and I think this is just the reason that you can tap out for Drana and Levala in the right pot and be confident that you get another untap. It does nothing versus Roxai though, so just be aware. I guess it shut down Goblin Welder, but
I mean, I guess the good thing is by the time you deploy that 4 mana creature, you've already lost a Roxai, or you're not losing the Roxai.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're probably okay.
And with like all the silver bullets, we are always like looking at our hands, at our tutors, and we like tutor accordingly, right? I like Draenei versus Roxai more than I like Drana and Vala. But if I'm in like a more grindy pot with like Kinnan or Magda, I will definitely try to get out this Drana and Vala. And so far, for me, it has been looking pretty good. And from what I've heard from other players, a friend of mine who plays Dihada has been excited. It's like more of a mid-range Dihada, and he also has been like very happy with it because it just buys this little extra time to like up and then down tick Dihada again or whatever.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense because I mean, when the ban first hit, my first thought was everyone's going to play Dorks, which means Curse Totem is going to be good. But then I'm like, well, but the problem with that is I want to play Dorks too. But Adrenaline Vala has the same effect without hurting you, so that makes a lot of sense. I'll say that this past Friday, I was gonna say this past Friday, I was in a pod where a player tutored, and I did the political thing where I'm like, whoa, dude, what are you tutoring for? What are you getting? And we had the whole back and forth for a while, and he's like, fine, I'll be honest, I'm getting Adrenaline Vala. And I'm like, well, hell no. That turns off my entire deck. So I countered his tutor. Then he did another tutor that got countered, and another tutor that got countered. And the whole table was like, no, we cannot let this happen. So I mean, that kind of backs up what you're saying. I mean, I think we were all terrified of that card.
Yeah, so there's definitely a downside, right? Clones and Gilded Break. But like I already my suspicion is that the clones got res relevant, and Gilded Drake is a card. Yeah, but if they Gilded Drake my Tymna, it's also terrible, right? So I don't know. Like I
think Gilded Drake is bad right now. Honestly, I don't.
I don't even think there are so many Gilded Drakes. But I guess clones could fuck you up. But we are still an Oracle deck in TNT, so I don't know. Like,
it doesn't completely ruin you. But
like worst case scenario, we are retesting it, and worst case scenario, we cut it in a couple of weeks because the meta got faster or whatever. Or like it's always dead in our hand. But I feel like, especially with those top performing decks, it could be a very good silver bullet.
Yeah, I'm trying to make Birthing Pod work a good bit in that deck and kind of make the deck kind of toolboxy. So it would make sense because I can always sack Tymna to get
that sounds lit.
That works.
Yeah. Another card, a similar card, a friend of mine who also built TNT and went to locals today and went like 4-0 or 3-1 is the Shana's Tidebinder. And he was like, why aren't you on that if you aren't running the Vala? And I was like, because I forgot that card existed. So it's similar to like Oppo, it's a 3/2 flash creature that counters activated and triggers abilities for 3 mana. Similar Exodus, right? They activate Sisay, they activate Najeela, they activate Kinnan, they activate Basalt Monolith, like want to untap Basalt Monolith, right? They Oracle, and we can just flash in the Tidebinder, counter one of those abilities, or for instance, Razorcat ability or Agatha's Soul Cauldron ability. I don't know, there's so much stuff.
Does that make Trickbind and Stifle better too? Or just,
I don't know. So my idea is it's a creature for Cradle in TNT, and it's a Tymna beater. So this is like I wouldn't play those cards in Najeela, and I would probably also not play them like all those Silver Bullet Hate Bears. I am mainly interested in them because I feel like with the addition of Tymna, they also in an ideal world draw me cards, and this is just the little thing that I probably need for them to like be good enough. But maybe we're a Trickbind deck. I don't know. Like could test
I guess
it
I
for
like
sure.
Tishana's too because it's a 3 minute, it's a 3 CMC creature, so I can
Mhm.
again thinking about birthing pod, I can birthing pod it into Hazel's Brewmaster, for example.
Also, one card I also want to shout out in this deck in TNT has been really good for me is Flare of Denial, and it's another blue creature, so I can definitely see like shutting down an activated ability of something, who then gets maybe less relevant or whatever, and then later when there's a like must answer win on this deck, we can sack the Tidebinder for Flare of Denial and keep Trustios around or whatever. So that's also a card I've been like happy with, and if there's another non-token blue creature I can play, I'll definitely give it a try.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and like worst case, if it doesn't perform, and they're like I said, like testing never hurts, guys. Like we can always play the
Especially
same
right
98
now.
cards, but yeah, especially right now, yeah. Like the format is still very new, and now we have like this huge meta shakeup. Go out there and test stuff, and worst case scenario, we just go back to what's proven.
Yeah, I don't think I think the only decks that are going to stay as proven are the two that we talked about at the beginning was Kinnan and Roxai. I think the world is wide open for literally everything else.
Yep.
Especially TNT, because there's so many different ways to build TNT and shift it based on how the meta shifts. Right? You can do you can do the Razakat's reanimation pile. You can do all in stacks. You can build a stacks based TNT if you want to.
That sounds awful. But somebody has had success with it. Freedom Waffle sent me a list of somebody who is like all in on null rat effects and then just hyper Timnath with like Delny and shit. I was like, okay.
It's like it's Spooky, Spooky, the Pantlaza guy, and someone else were working on that. Yeah.
Okay.
And it looks absolutely miserable. I'd rather poke myself in the eye than play that deck or play against that deck. But like, hey, some people are into that, so good for them.
So I started with Abdel Adrian, played the tournament with it. It was miserable.
Yeah.
Then I swapped to Hermit. Hermit was the most fun. I just loved like slam a turn 1 Hermit, threaten a turn 2 win. I played this for like 1 or 2 weeks, and I had definitely had like 5 turn 1 Druids. And one time I won turn 2, 3 times they had OBM, and 1 time they had like Into the Floodmore or a Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
So it is cool, but it's definitely not good. Somebody else told me Hermit Druid is smokers, and I was like, what do you mean by that? And he said, like, either you win on turn 2 and you can go smoke, or you lose turn 2, and then you could also go smoke. I was like, oh yeah, that checks out.
I think there's a way. I think there's a way to make Hermit Druid reliable, and I think the trick is Agatha's Soul Cauldron, Hazel's Brewmaster, Shifting Woodlands. Those 3 cards.
Lunge.
Yeah, exactly. Let it go into the graveyard and then bring it back and activate immediately in some way.
Yeah.
Sneak it in. I think that's the way to do it.
Also, like I played a very Hermit, like Turbo Hermit package with like a lot of death cards, but I wanted to make sure if I have a turn 1 Hermit and I can activate it turn 2, I don't want any other resources. So I played like Bridge from Below, Poxwalkers, Narcomedia. But you don't have to do that, right? You can also be like, I'm just gonna play Dread or like just Sabines even, or like Dread Return and Hermit, and I'm just gonna grind out. And if I have a bunch of creatures and the Druid for 1 turn, I can always threaten to activate it. But I don't have to. You can also like build it like that if you wanted to.
Well, and survival of the fittest is so good right now. With any of those strategies, because I can go and tutor up, either Devoted Druid or Hermit, drop them into the graveyard, and go get Hazel's Brewmaster to bring the effect back if I want to. This is just so good right now.
Also, you can like bluff stuff, right? So it was last week. I had survival, and then they went like end step. I had a culling ritual like 2 turns before. They were pretty dead, and they had found like a world tutor, and then they world tutor for Shorikai. And I had survival and 1 green up, and then I just hinted that I could grab endurance, and then they didn't go for it. Little did they know I didn't have a green card to ditch to endure it. So I bluffed. They didn't go for the win, and then it got back to me, and I won.
Nice.
So also like survival, like you can also like point at Oppo. You can point at the possibility of endurance, and maybe this will like
stop someone.
People, stop someone or make them not trying to go for it, and then buys more time.
Yeah, survival lets you play cards face up that you don't even have. That's what's beautiful about it. You can just sort of hint, hey, I can always go get endurance right now. Yeah, just by saying that, you can stop people from winning.
Embrace the copium.
Exactly. Speaking of, there's other decks that have kind of arisen that were on the junk pile. The big one is Shorikai. Have you seen Waffle's Shorikai list?
Yeah, this is fucking the abomination. I don't know. This is just propaganda. Okay, so my theory is that just Waffle is a good player. Like, if Waffle would have picked up fucking Maneo's Kalgar instead of Shorikai, everyone would talk about Maneo's Kalgar. I don't know. I've seen it. Is it really? I haven't played against it yet. Is it really like? Obviously, Shorikai doesn't fold to dog set anymore, and I've seen the One Ring Mind Over Matter stuff.
Yeah,
but like turn zero commandeer.
I think the reason it's playable now is just because of that extra turn, the fact that things have slowed down one turn, so it has an opportunity to deploy itself as a value engine and then grind. Like, it just has that ability to grind, and it has the ability to play a lot of creature hate, lots of removal, lots of mass removal. And we just sat here and talked about TNT for 15 minutes.
Yep, that's fair.
Board wipes absolutely destroy TNT and Tymna decks, and Shorikai can play those without any downside. So I think that's where Shorikai shines. And they can also play Curse Totem, right? And it doesn't affect them.
Curse Totem is probably also pretty insane right now.
Right. So I think that's why Shorikai is good. It is slow, but at least it plays blue, so they can hold up interaction to stop Rogsai from winning on turn 2. So it has that. So I think it's legit. I don't think it's the best Azorius deck. I think Tameshi got a whole lot better, and the only thing holding back Tameshi from domination, I think, is that just not enough people play it.
I played the deck for a while. I liked it. So it's a good deck, but you really, really need a lot of endurance, because every round, or like every game, I didn't play it in a tournament, just gets super convoluted and super grindy. And in my head, I'm like, after 75, 80 minutes, like, you grind it out a win, and then the next round starts. And maybe it's just a personal preference, but I just want to like lay back, like, and I want to challenge, obviously, but I also noticed this if I have like very convoluted Roxai storm turns that go like 20 minutes and they interact a lot, and I have to like yesterday, I had to they Boseju'd my breach with my Brainfreeze on the stack. I had a Flot Collar, and then I like escape Jaywall on top, flip Time Twister, let Boseju resolve, Time Twister, then let Brainfreeze resolve. Like, it was, I always noticed that my brain just gets fried.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Tameshi is just, for me, it was always a deck. I'm like, how am I supposed to play 5 or 7 rounds?
It's a control deck with some of the most convoluted, complicated win lines out of any deck in the format. So, you put those two together, and I can't even imagine. I could never play a tournament. I'm not smart enough to play a tournament on Tameshi.
It's definitely a cool deck. I have a soft spot for everything that is like graveyard related, so I will always root for Tameshi. But it definitely it has a high skill gap.
Yeah, I'll tell you the other thing that's interesting is if I look at tournament results over the last 2 weeks, how is Tivit still winning? I don't even understand.
Okay, here's my theory. They finally stopped casting Tivit. Like, they stopped casting Tivit. They just play Esper good stuff, and they only cast Tivit when they have the times. I don't see Tivit anywhere in any games I play. I think I said once or twice, but I think you just play Esper good stuff. Maybe play something like Containment Priest, even, which is also pretty good versus Magda, Kinnin, all the evolution style stuff. And then you just wait for the one turn. You go Tivit, vote double treasure, and then you cast your time sieve. That's just maybe what people are doing. I feel like playing one color less or one color more gives you so much more options. But some people just, I don't know. There are a lot of Esper.
I'd just rather have a cheap, fast, draw engine in the command zone, or I'd rather run Tymna Malcolm right now than Tivit.
People just like their one card win in the command zone. I think it's just very popular, especially with Tivit. I never understood it because I was like, if extra turns in tournaments are awful as a win condition.
Yeah.
So I never got why people were so happy or liked it so much, but I don't know.
I mean, I will say I have a good friend who plays it. Poncho plays Tivit, and he's been really, really good at Tivit. And I think it works for him because, the win lines and the combo lines are very, very straightforward. So you don't have to, you don't get lost in really complex ways to win the game.
Pile,
right.
Like
so
Timler,
instead you can just sit there and really focus on what everybody else is doing at the table and play just control and not have to worry about anything else. And I think that style does work for some people, but even he's off of Tivit right now just because it's so damn hard to cast. It's just to me, it doesn't seem like a deck that would do well, but somehow, it is.
It's still popular.
What other crazy shit have you seen?
What crazy shit have I seen? So let's talk about a Blood Moon, because this is something that's actually pretty good versus TNT if you get rid of their dorks or if they have an opener without dorks. So I feel like the resurgence of Blood Moon effects is also something, by the way, that Najeela profits off of, because spoiler alert, Najeela only costs 3 red, although it's a 5-color commander. But I definitely feel like Blood Moon effects coming back, mainly from Magda or like Roger Tavish. Roger Tavish also got an upgrade with this new demon they can polymorph into that casts stuff from exile, which is like a one-sided rest in peace, and everything that gets exiled with Velgavoth, you can cast for paying life or whatever. So it's a pretty good polymorph target. Also a like 9/9 flyer that has ward, sacrifice 3 non-land permanents, so it like never goes away.
It's hexproof, basically.
Yeah, and they also play moon effect. So I think moon effects are back, and you can't break parity as easily because Dockside is gone. I'm not saying Blood Moon effects are good, but it would be very condescending to not say they got better. Like they're not the best thing you can do.
I think that's
but
fair.
They definitely got better.
I think that the awkward position of it right now is like you also really want to play things like Pyroclasm. Like do 2 damage to every creature on board right now is incredibly powerful. But the problem is you want to play Blood Moon, you want to play Pyroclasm. What deck can play both of those cards? Like you're not going to play Pyroclasm and Magda. It kills all your doors.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
You would play Blood Moon, and Blood Moon is safe now without Dockside. But
my issue, do you know why I'm not interested in it as much? Because one of the best decks now, might even be the best deck soon, is Kinnan. And like Kinnan plays basics. And I'm really not interested in like king-making Kinnan. Like Kinnan doesn't fucking care. Like they always open with Dork or Rocks. So even if they fetch for non-basics and somehow don't draw basic, they probably still make tons of colored mana. So it's not insane with Kinnan unless you have it like I don't know, turn 1 on the play or whatever, so they can't even get their Birds of Paradise out. So maybe then it's good. But it's also not that great with Roxai.
No.
Okay, like we are on Chromatic Star, for example, to filter all the J-Will mana we make. We have
Roxai doesn't
so
care.
many
Roxai just needs red anyway half the time. That's all they really need is red.
Exactly. Like how we need a sprinkle of black, right?
Yeah.
We use Chromatic Star or an Arcane Signet, but like most of the stuff we're doing is red anyway. We are very hesitant to play Transmute Artifact in the Dark Rock list because double blue is terrible to cast. We only want to have double blue like for Oracle after we build our whole graveyard. So like I don't think it's that good with both of those decks, and those are like the 2 best decks currently. So I personally wouldn't be too interested in playing it, but I can definitely see it like performing very well in the right spot at the right time. Especially
I haven't seen I haven't seen a really powerful creature combo deck rise up yet, and I think that's probably where it will happen. Something that some kind of red, Kiki Jiki based deck at some point has to emerge from this mess. And I think that's where you can play Blood Moon probably more effectively, because you need a deck that can consistently attack the dorks and attack artifacts, and play Blood Moon. If you can do those 3 things,
and also win,
and actually win the game, and actually win the game, yes, right, and that's a tricky combination. Like it seems to me that maybe like Jund is the colors to somehow pull that off, but I don't see the deck right now. I haven't seen anyone play anything that really does that. But it's got to come. It's got to come.
I don't know, like maybe Jund's deck also does not sound very exciting, honestly.
Yeah, other than Korvold, and Korvold's dead.
I don't know. You can still make food chain stuff. It's like similar to the Sisei stuff, right? You can still go for this, but I'm like, but this was always like Plan C. Do you really want your Plan C to become Plan A? I don't know.
Yeah, the decks. Yeah, I think a lot of people are still in denial that their decks are not good now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I like that they like also like a lot of people invested into the decks and they're comfortable with the decks, and I also like that they try to make them work. Like I'm rooting for them, but I think at some point, I don't know if we reach that point, but I would just hope for them that if they like at some point they realize, okay, my win rate plummeted. I've been trying this like for 50, 60, 70 games now, and it's just fucking terrible, that they just move on. Like I have been struggling with this. So for the longest time, I thought like I'm only good with Najeela, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna play Najeela. Even if she was like bad positioned, I was like, no, I can only do this, right? And it took me a long time to have the confidence in just playing a different deck. And then I started doing well with Roxai, and then I started to get more confident about it. Be like, no, I don't have to be a one-trick pony, only because I have been doing well with this one deck for a period of time. Like it just needs commitment and also being just open about it, and also like having fun, right? If you don't enjoy other decks, if it's really the only thing that sparks joy is the one deck, okay, do what like sparks joy. But if you like winning and you notice that your favorite deck isn't as good at winning anymore, just don't waste your time and just fool around and try something else.
My personal experience is I was the Florian guy. I mean, I was locked in on Florian. Everyone knew me for playing Florian. But when I switched over to Talion and I was winning on Talion, I can't express how liberating that was for me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, both just, you know, to because it's somewhere in your mind, everyone's got that imposter syndrome going on. They think I'm only, you know, I'm not really good. It's just this deck is good, and I can only do well with this deck. And as soon as this deck is not good anymore, I'm washed. You know, it's over.
Yeah.
And winning on another deck, taking up another deck, learning how to play it, being successful on it is one of the most liberating experiences I've had in cEDH. And it taught me that, you know what, I can play this game, and I can play other decks, and there's a whole world out there for me to explore. And I think the danger is a lot of people get this tunnel vision where they have this one commander that they're known for, that they know, and they just tunnel into that, and they don't think about anything else. They don't think anything else will be fun. They don't think anything else will be good. And then a ban comes along that destroys their deck, and you're stuck, and you're washed, you know, like you're like a beached, you know, sea animal. Like I can't express it enough. Everyone should take the time, even if you love the shit out of your commander that's, you know, your baby, play other things. Learn other things, and not just like in your living room. Take them to tournaments. You don't have to spike every tournament every time and like be like, oh, this is the tournament, this is the deck I know the best, and I got to win this tournament. Sometimes take a risk. You know, pick up another deck that you think is good and just go for it.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I did like 2 weeks ago, right? So the bans happened, and we had a local. It was the first 100-person tournament post bans. It was a coincidence, right? Because nobody knew about the bans, and top 4 got Underground Seas, and first place got like Cradle. I don't own a Cradle, and I don't own an Underground Sea. So I was okay, I'm gonna bring Roxai. I'm gonna like win this Underground Sea, right? Or win this Cradle for Najeela or for my Derivative deck back then. And then the bans happened. I was still very dialed in on Roxai, and then I played post ban, and I just had an awful like 10 days or an awful week or what it was. I went like legit. I played like 10, 12 games, and I lost like 10 of them. I think I won 2 or 3, and I got king made like in one of them. So it was awful. And then everyone's like, nah, just variants, you're gonna do well. You want a league with Roxai, you want a tournament with Roxai, you're gonna do well. And I'm like, I'm not feeling it. Like I felt so miserable, and like there was no confidence anymore. I doubted myself. I didn't even enjoy the last games I played. I was trying to force it. I kept hands I was supposed to keep. I necroed for 35s, didn't get it. Like everything that went wrong, that could have went wrong, like actually went wrong. And then one day before the tournament, I talked to a friend who also struggled. He wanted to bring Najeela, but also struggled. And then we were like, what the fuck are we doing? Like Eisenherz is visiting. We're just here to have fun. Let's play something new that sparks joy. That's the new meta now. Let's fool around. And then he went to like Okima Food Chain, and I played TNT. And we both scrubbed out, right? But we had a lot of fun, and I learned a shit ton about TNT. A lot of stuff I probably wouldn't have learned if I wouldn't have brought it to a tournament. And I had a blast, and enjoyed myself very much. And I don't know if I would have had the same fun if would have brought Rockside there, and maybe it had the same variance I had in playtesting. Yeah, maybe in the end I would have made top 16 or top 4 or whatever, but I'm still happy that I listened to my gut and did what I think is right and not did what like objectively would have been correct, because a Rockside I've known for months is objectively better than a TNT deck I had 0 reps in, right? But I'm still happy that I went out of my comfort zone, because it's not something I usually do. But I'm still happy I did it back then, even if I scrubbed out.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. And I think, especially right now, we don't know what the meta really is yet. Like we're guessing at it. We're applying anecdotal experiences to say what we're seeing. But the reality is what it is today and what it is 2 weeks from now, maybe 2 completely different things as people figure things out and things change. So now is the time to experiment and try new things. I think everyone can benefit from that. So I think that's probably the end of this conversation for the most part. But are you going to Lisbon? Are you gonna be in Lisbon?
No, sadly I'm not. I've been traveling so much this year. Also, I'm like gone again next week for work, another 4 days or so. And then we have this huge vacation to Indonesia in December coming up, which I'm very excited about. So I sadly don't have any vacation days left to go to Lisbon this year, but I will definitely attend next year's European Championship.
Awesome.
I don't care where it is, but next year I'm very locked in attending that. Are you going?
I am going. Yes, I'll be there.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's gonna be a blast. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of people are going. Like Eisenherz is going.
Tuka and Pixel are going to be there, for example. Like it's going to be an interesting crowd. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you going to come back to the States for anything soon?
Yes, I hope I can. So I want to attend at least one event next year. I'm not sure which one this will be. I would have loved to come to the Boil, but same argument than with Lisbon.
Right.
I just don't have the vacation time left. But I would love to come back to the States next year and play in a cEDH tournament again.
Awesome. Well, hey man, Memo, thanks so much for joining. This is a blast. It's a whole new world for everybody. Hope everybody gets experimental and tries it out, and we'll watch how the meta shifts. If you're looking for cEDH coaching, Memo does that. So, Memo, how do they get a hold of you?
Also, the events have been very good for my coaching business. So if you want to reach out, if you want to just exchange some ideas, feel free to DM me on either Discord or Twitter. I'm always excited to talk about like it does not only have to be Najeela or any of the decks we talked about today. I'm also always open to brew the wildest stuff with you. Support you on your goals.
Awesome. So thanks everybody. I hope everyone enjoyed this. Please do the whole like and subscribe thing. I do have a Patreon. I do have a Discord. All of that will be in the description below. Please come join us. Come talk to us. Hit up Memo for coaching. And thanks for joining. Talk to you later.
Bye.